Welcome Year 6 to your daily maths lessons. These first 6 to 8 lessons will all be centred around area and perimeter and volume. You will need a pen and paper or a whiteboard and pen. You shouldn't need to have anything else in front of you. Continuing on with the area of triangles, moving on from yesterday where we looked at right angled triangles, and you came up with a possible formula for working out that area. So hopefully you've got that written down, or you can remember the formula you wrote for that yesterday. Let's have a look at that now. Let's look at what I left you with yesterday. You were trying to write your own formulas for the area of a triangle based on what you knew about a rectangle. So your mathematical formula for working out a rectangle is just L times W, length times width. So in this case would be 7 times 4, and that would give you the area of the rectangle. Yesterday we worked out that the right angled triangle is exactly half of the rectangle. So in maths, when we say something is half, we divide it by 2. So what we could say then is that the triangle is the rectangle formula, length times width, and then we simply divide it by 2. So that is, that's a funny W, let me write that again, length times width divided by 2. So length times width divided by 2. That would be an acceptable formula for now, but we will have a look how this may have to change when we look at different triangles in a moment. But for this particular example, length times width divided by 2 would be an acceptable formula, because all we're doing is understanding that the triangle is half the area of the rectangle. So we're using our rectangle formula and we're dividing it by 2. Yesterday we mainly concentrated on right-angled triangles. So what's different about this triangle? Well, it's not a right angle. Hopefully you all recognise that as an isosceles triangle, 2 equal sides out of the 3. Would this still have the same formula that you came up with yesterday? So I think the first thing we need to look at, is it half of a rectangle? Is the area half that of a rectangle? So maybe looking at it straight away, you're thinking yes, no. So we need to experiment with that. So let me show you how you could do that. So we've got a rectangle there on the screen, and we've got an isosceles triangle. Do you think that is half of that rectangle? What you could do is this, to try and make it clearer. Some of you might be seeing it now. Or if you wanted to, you could cut out the 2 green parts of the rectangle, the bits that aren't taken up with the orange or yellow triangle there, and if you put those together, you will see it is the same as the triangle. So what that actually shows you there is that the yellow, the goldeny colour triangle is the same as what's left, what isn't used in the rectangle. So it's showing you that the isosceles triangle is in fact half the space. It takes up half the space of that rectangle. So like the right angled triangle, the isosceles triangle is half the area of the rectangle. So that should tell you then that we can still use the formula, and in fact all triangles will be half the size of a rectangle or a parallelogram. So for whatever triangle you have, you can still use the formula that it's half that of the rectangle or parallelogram. Parallelograms we will have a lesson on in the coming weeks. So what measurements did we need to know to find out the area of a right-angled triangle? So when you did your formulas yesterday, some of you will have written the length times the width. Some of you might have called it something different. Using the language of the rectangle, you would have said length times width when you use the area of the triangle. We actually call the bottom part of the triangle, when we're working out area, we call it the base. And then to work out the area of any triangle, we look at the height. So when you've got a right angled triangle, it's always going to be the perpendicular side. The side that creates the right angle is its height, and you're normally given those two measurements. When you're looking at isosceles or different triangles, this is where you have to take care that you're actually taking the height and not just one of the sides, but we'll have a look at that as the lesson goes on. So if we look at this, the base of a triangle is 6 centimetres and the height is 10 centimetres. What is the area of the triangle? So the base there, fairly straightforward, 6 centimetres, and the height always makes a right angle. It's the perpendicular line. It's the line that makes a right angle. The height is basically how tall the triangle is. It's not the side of the triangle, it's how high that triangle is, and it will create that right angle. So the height here is 10 centimetres. So using your formula, that would be base times height divided by 2, because we know it's half the size of the rectangle. So base times height, 6 times 10, divided by 2 would be 30 centimetres, and its area, so it's 30 centimetres squared. Okay, this time we've got 3 measurements, and we've got Julie working out the area of this triangle. And she says, if I multiply 10 centimetres by 12 centimetres and divide it by 2, the answer is 60 centimetres. Okay, so Julie has used the formula. Has she done it correctly? Have a go at working out the area of that triangle. Press pause, work it out, and then I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so here's our problem Julie was faced with. We have got an isosceles triangle here, and we're asked to work out the area of this. So we know to work out the area now, we do base times height, and we divide it by 2, because it's half of the rectangle, so we divide it by 2. So base and height. So base, 10 centimetres. I'm going to put my numbers into my formula. Times my height. Now remember I said the height makes a right angle. It's the perpendicular height. So this is not a right angle. This is just the length of this side. So we wouldn't use this. This here is how high the triangle is, and it makes a right angle here. Okay? So the height would be 11 centimetres. So 10 times 11 divided by 2. I've put my numbers in and then I can work it out. So 10 times 11 is 110 divided by 2. My area would be 55 centimetres squared, because it's area centimetres squared. Okay, so being careful, you choose the correct measurement for the height. It is the height which makes a right angle, the perpendicular height, not just one of the sides. If it's a right angle, you can see, like we were doing yesterday, this is the height. This side would be the height because it's a right angle, so that is the perpendicular height. When it's a different type of triangle, be careful you don't just choose one of the sides. Make sure you get the perpendicular height. Okay. Okay, so just to recap on the actual formulas that you should be using for finding the area of a triangle. Probably the most easiest one to use is the base, the bottom of the triangle, times the height, remember, the perpendicular height, divided by 2, because it's half the size of a rectangle. So base times height divided by 2 will give you the area of a triangle, or you can do half the base and multiply it by the height. They will both give you the same answer, and I'll show you that now. So I've written 2 ways we can find the area of a triangle at the top. Base times height divided by 2 that I've been using. You can also find the area of a triangle by doing half of the value of the base, half whatever number's at the base, and multiplying it by the height. Make sure you don't mix the 2 up. If you're doing that one, do that one. If you're doing that one, do that one. I'll show you how to work these 2 out now using both. You'll get one that you prefer. I tend to prefer using this one, but it doesn't matter. Also, if you know both, sometimes in a test you can check using both, and if you get the same answer, you can feel happy that you've done it correct. So if we use base times height divided by 2 for this isosceles triangle, we've got base 3 times the height here, my perpendicular height, yeah, makes a right angle, times 4 divided by 2. 3 times 4 is 12, divided by 2, that would be 6 centimetres squared. If I use this formula to work it out, half of the base times the height, I've got half of 3, which is 1.5 or 1.5. 1.5 times 4, which is 1 times 4 is 4, half of 4 is 2, add them together, 6 centimetres squared. So whichever way you choose to work out the area of your triangle, it's the same answer. And let's have a look at this one just to make sure you're getting this. So base times height divided by 2, the base 5 times my height, in this case it is just the side because it's a right angle triangle, this is the height. 5 times 6 is 30, divided by 2 would be 15 centimetres squared. If I prefer using this formula to work out my triangle, that's absolutely fine. I can do half the base times the height, so half the base is 2.5, 2.5, times 6 equals, 2 times 6 is 12, half 6 is 3, add them together, 15 centimetres squared. So all I'm showing you there is 2 different ways to work out the area of your triangle. You can choose one, you can learn both, it doesn't take long. If you get the same answer, like I said, you can be really assured that you've got the answer right when you get them the same. Right, so using those formulas, either base times height divided by 2 or half the base times the height, can you have a look at the questions on this page, number 1, 2 and 3. Have a go at answering them all now. Press pause, and then when you come back, of course, I will go through the answers with you. But using your knowledge now, you've got your formulas, can you work out those questions? Be careful on number 3 to check that they are all in the same measurement, and really think about questions 1, 2 and 3. They're at the bottom of on question 3, the 3 questions you've got there. They're a little bit more tricky. Just make sure you're using the knowledge that you have gained. Right, the first question there asked us, using our formulas, what was the correct calculation here? So if we look, we've got our base is 10, our perpendicular height is 4, and this is just the length of a side. So if I was working this out, I would say base 10 multiplied by 4 divided by 2. So this middle one, 10 multiplied by 4 divided by 2. Base times perpendicular height divided by 2. So that is the correct answer. The top one, they've used the side, they've gone wrong. They've gone 10 multiplied by 5. That is not the perpendicular height, that is just the length of that side. And in this one, they've done the side by the perpendicular height, so they haven't used the base. So the middle one is correct. They've got the base times the perpendicular height here, the one that makes the right angle, and they've divided it by 2. For question 2, you were asked to work out the area, and you were given a triangle and it had squares for you to count. What you should have worked out there, that the base of that triangle, there was 8 squares, and if you counted the height, not the side, how tall it was, using the perpendicular height, there was 4 squares. So the base times the height was 8 times 4, and then you know you divide it by 2, so your answer for that one should have been 16 centimetres squared. Okay, we'll go through number 3 now. If we look at question 3, the first one on question 3, we are given a triangle here with 5 metres, 13 metres and 12 metres. I've immediately drawn on that this is a right angle here, which I've spotted because I have perpendicular lines, even though mine don't really look like it. This should be a straight line. So knowing this is a perpendicular line, this shows me that this up here, even though it's the other way around, this is my base. So my base is 5, my perpendicular height is 12. So base times height is 60 divided by 2. So my area for this triangle is 30 centimetres squared. Okay, 30 centimetres squared. Right, the second one in that question, showed you two identical triangles. Again, you have to imagine my drawings of triangles are identical. This and this should be the same. And they gave you the width across here as 3 and the height of both triangles as 7. So this there gives me my base of the triangle. So my base is 3 multiplied by my height. If I just do each triangle at a time, then I can add them back together. So the height of my top triangle is going to be half of the whole thing. So it's going to be 3 times 3.5 and then divided by 2. So 3 times 3 is 9, half of 3 is 1.5. So that's going to be 10.5 divided by 2, which is 5.25. So the area of my top triangle is 5.25 centimetres squared. Remember I said this one would be exactly the same. So 5.25 centimetres squared and 5.25 centimetres squared. The area of these two triangles joined together would be 10.5 centimetres squared. Let's look at the last one on question 3 now. Okay, and the last one I'm going to go through today showed you two identical triangles actually making up a parallelogram. If we work out one triangle, the other one will be the same. So we know this side here is 6. Our height, remember it's not 5, our height here, from here to here, is going to be the same as our height here to here. So base 6 times our perpendicular height here, this would make a right angle. Going straight up, it would make a right angle. 6 times 4, base times height, divided by 2 will get us this triangle here. 6 times 4 divided by 2, 24 divided by 2, this would be 12 centimetres squared. So this is 12 centimetres squared, which means this, exactly the same, would be 12 centimetres squared. So the whole shape together would be 24 centimetres squared. Each triangle working out at 12 centimetres squared each. So parallelograms we will come on to, but you might be able to see there, the parallelogram, the whole shape, if we took that bit out, and I said that the parallelogram we just worked out in total was 24 centimetres squared. Some of you might be able to work out the formula for the area of the parallelogram there. If not, we will be having a lesson on it, I think 2 or 3 lessons down from where we are now. Okay, I'm going to leave you with these two problems today. The first one, Macy and Lainey are working out the area of this triangle. Macy says to work out the area you multiply 8 by 8 and divide your answer by 2. But Lainey says to work out the area you only need half of the base, so you multiply 8 by 4, then divide it by 2. Who do you agree with, and what's one of them done wrong there? In the second problem-solving question, you've got a pink triangle there, and it tells you the area is 42 centimetres squared. Two children work out the height, and here are their answers. Simon says it's 42 divided by 7 equals 6, so he's given the height as 6. And Jade says 42 times 2 is 84, 84 divided by 7 equals 12. Who is correct? And explain how you know. So remember there you are looking for the height of that triangle. So use your formula, and when you've got your answer, put your numbers into your formula. Remember you need to get the area, which is 42 centimetres squared. So check it by using the formula when you've got your answer. Okay, we'll leave it there today. Remember on Mathletics there are questions on area and perimeter that you can practice some of these at. Okay, well done today.